Hey guys, thank you for checking out this episode. We'd love your support by heading to patreon.com/freshly grounded. It really does make a difference in helping us continue making this content. And if not, no stress. Enjoy. Assalamu alaikum guys, welcome to Freshly Grounded. Another episode in Ramadan, alhamdulillah. This episode is a very, very interesting one. We haven't shot it yet, and normally I do the intro, as you guys know, after the episode, so I can kind of let you guys know what's been discussed. But alas, I'm trying this new system right now for Ramadan to make things a bit easier for myself and saving editing time, so I can put as much time into priorities, I guess. So it's with a brother called Jordan. Now, the reason I find these episodes so interesting is because I'm going to be learning along with you guys on this episode, because I have so much that I want to know. And I started hearing a bit of Jordan's story and I instantly cut it off, because I was like, oh, let me see if we can get this guy on Freshly Guided. I really want to hear more. And I want to react naturally as you guys react. I want to react with you guys. I'm sure there's ups and downs in the story. And just like all of the other amazing brothers that we've had on this podcast. And so, very, very, very interested in that. But before we get into it, just to let you guys know that we are still fundraising for the Spot Academy. So as you guys know, Freshly Grounded basically started because Sam and I met on this trip in Gambia, and we were fundraising for this orphanage and this school where the orphans and the young boys there are being taught Quran, Sunnah, secular studies, so that they've come from backgrounds where they've either lost their parents or their parents can't keep them anymore, their families can't keep them, and they're in poverty, and they learn not only Quran and Sunnah but these secular skills, even to the point when Sam goes out there, he teaches barbering to the kids so they can cut hair and stuff like that, so they can get into employment and so they can change their lives and they can build their communities. And so it's a massive inspirational project. They learn top hygiene. They're given everything firsthand. They're never given secondhand clothes or anything. Abu Bakr treats these children how he would want his children to be treated, and that means no secondhand clothing. That means no sharing toothbrushes, no sharing beds, and you guys so far in the 3 or 4 years that we've been doing this have, I think, just the Freshly Grounded listeners alone have raised, I think, just under 30k for this project. So we really do thank you. And now we're planning to do something similar for the girls' school. So to build a girls' school, right now at the time of this recording, we raised £6,000, alhamdulillah, of our £10,000 target. So I don't know where it's at right now, because we're going to be releasing this episode a few days after recording it. But please do donate, and that's at spotproject.org/freshly grounded. And lastly, before we get into the episode, guys, if you are a fan of this kind of thing and you want to show love and support to Freshly Grounded and help us keep going, we would love for you to become a Patreon at patreon.com/freshly grounded, where we give exclusive updates, free content, early released episodes, and a bunch of other stuff. But more than anything, it means that you can support Freshly Grounded and allow us to not have to rely on private sponsorships and kind of dilute the podcast with a load of content that doesn't want to be heard by everyone. All right, guys, without any further ado, this is Freshly Grounded. Let's play the intro.
And welcome to Freshly Grounded, the brand new podcast by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Huh?
I said welcome to Freshly Grounded,
No, after that bit.
the brand new podcast
And after that bit?
by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Really?
All right, let's bring Jordan into this and get started. Assalamu alaikum, Jordan. Welcome to Freshly Grounded.
Wa alaikum salam. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me on such A, short notice, and B, not knowing anything about us, and just me kind of just pouncing. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. No, I checked out some of your content this week. MashaAllah. May Allah reward you. Some fantastic work you're doing.
Jazakallah khair, Jazakallah khair. Likewise. So the story of how I kind of came across yourself is, we'll track it back in December this year. I don't know how much Martin's told you, but in December this past year, I was hosting the Mufti Menk tour, and one of the stops were Cardiff. And that's where I met Martin, and he was telling me his story, and we ended up exchanging contact details. And we didn't keep too much in touch, to be honest, and that's probably my fault. But we spent a good few hours together after the show, and it was amazing hearing his story and the sacrifices that he's had to make for his religion. Subhanallah. I think we were actually both in tears during the concert. Like, we met for the first time. Only like Islam could bring two strangers together from two completely different upbringings, two completely different kind of backgrounds, and then upon meeting, sharing each other's stories, be in tears with each other, like hugging it out at the end. And that's what it was like with Martin. And so what happened is, if you skip forward now to a few nights ago, I'm procrastinating. Typical me. I'm meant to be like, I've allotted time to like try and get my Quran in and stuff. I start procrastinating. I'm on my phone and I come across EF Dawah's channel and Martin's on there, and I'm like, hold on a second, what? And I started stringing things together because he told me that he did go to Umrah with EF Dawah and stuff. And that's how I kind of came across you. I think you were hosting it, and so I got led down a rabbit hole and ended up finding your story, and I was intrigued, and I ended up thinking, right, let me holler Martin and see if we can get in touch with Jordan, and I'd love to hear his story fully on Freshly Grounded. So that's kind of how I got in touch with you.
Yeah, I wasn't aware. Martin didn't tell me he was in tears and stuff. I'll be speaking to him later. But you're right. How Islam brings people together like that is, mashallah, there's nothing else like it.
Yeah, man. How's Ramadan been going for you so far then?
Yeah, I mean, it's my third Ramadan. And to be honest, I thought this Ramadan's going to be, what we're going to do, we're all going to be locked in. And obviously, with the not having masjid around, not doing the taraweehs, but has been a bit of a knock. But I've never read so much. I've never had so much time to kind of really focus on Allah, the Deen. And so, to be honest, I'm making the most of it, and I think I've got a little part of my place where I live where I've made my own little masjid, and it's been a beautiful Ramadan so far. Early days.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to hear, but likewise, like I think that we can either be super negative or deal with where we're at right now and make it positive. And I think that, alhamdulillah, for the most part, I've seen a lot of people just say, you know what, we're going to make lots of dua that the masajid are back open and Allah is capable of all things, but at the same time we're going to use this as an opportunity to help our families, to do as much reading as possible, to revive certain sunnahs that we don't revive when we're in the masjid. So yeah, likewise, man, I'm feeling very positive, and I've been able to get a lot of time to read. I've been able to implement like new routines, and also save little bits of time and make use of them. So little things like the journey to the masjid. I live in an area where there's no masjid like walking distance from me. I'm probably assuming that you do too, because I remember you telling me about where you're from, similar place from Sam, and so I have to jump in the car. And it's like a 10-minute drive at least.
Yeah.
And so saving those little pockets of time and trying to utilize them, it's been all right, man. Yeah,
that's subhanallah. And I think, like you say, it's everything's in Allah's hands, and all we can do is make the most of it. It's very easy to worry about it and to think, this is going to be a nightmare. But it's like I said, for me, I've definitely seen the positive side of Ramadan 2020.
Alhamdulillah. Well, what I want to do is I want to get into the $1 million question that I've been so intrigued by, and that is, how does a Englishman from around the Hertfordshire area first learn about Islam, and what does that journey look like? I'm sorry to kind of delve straight into it, but I'm ranting my pants.
Yeah, and I'll try and give a good account of it best I can. So it's because I guess it's a long story, because it was a process of over probably a year. But if I took myself, I've been Muslim now 2.5 years. If I took myself back, say 4 years ago, I was someone who very happy with his life, happy with my friendship groups, happy with the way I was living. I wasn't really looking for religion, because a lot of people believe, that us converts to Islam are always people that have sort of hit rock bottom and pulled themselves up. That's not really my story. I was fairly happy as I was, but I'd say I was on the more anti-Islam side. Now, when I say that, I wasn't somebody who was campaigning against Islam or anything like that, but I certainly subscribed to Tommy Robinson's way of thinking, where, because in the media, as an Englishman, you hear about grooming gangs, you hear about terrorism, and you hear these things, and no one wants that in their country. And so for me, in my mind, I was pretty ignorant. I didn't really look much into it. But I just thought in the back of my mind, there's something not quite right, with Islam, because all this stuff's going on in that community. But if I go back even further, my sister converted to Islam probably about 20 years ago, and I had a really bad relationship with my sister, not because of the Islam, but we fell out and we didn't really talk. But she'd become Muslim and cleaned her life up. But as the years went on, she met a Pakistani guy, got married, and had a child.
So she converted before getting married?
She converted before.
I see.
Yes. But she met this guy first and converted before getting married.
I see.
And then, like I say, this was a long time ago. But she had a daughter, little Aman, my niece, and thankfully my sister would allow me to see my niece. So every weekend, we'd pop to a restaurant and we'd sit there and have chats. So she's reached the age of 4 or 5. And I think I was concerned that I knew that I had a family member who I loved. So I don't have children of my own, and I sort of invested a lot of love into my niece. I was very concerned that she was being raised as a Muslim. So I thought, she's going to start covering herself when she's older. She's going to meet a Muslim guy that's probably going to treat her terribly. And I didn't really want this for her. So I started looking into Islam, and we used to have little chats, me and Imam, even when she was sort of 6, 7. I remember her saying to me, Uncle Jordan, I don't want you to go to the hellfire, and things like that. And I remember just having these chats with her, and I remember over Christmas time her saying to me, Allah doesn't have a son, Uncle Jordan. And I remember we just have these chats. But anyway, it gave me a reason to start looking into Islam. Which was because I think otherwise I wouldn't have bothered. So I think everyone needs a kind of a trigger first. And so I started looking into it. I started reading about Islam, and to be honest, the more I started to look into Islam, I started finding out that my niece was suddenly going to be protected from all of the stuff that I saw girls growing up being affected by. All of a sudden I thought my niece she's going to not dress, revealing. She's not going to go through all that. She's going to be brought up with respect and strict kind of traditional values. And to me, all of a sudden, that became very attractive. And so it was over a process where I suddenly realized that actually, even though I've got these issues with Islam, how Islam treats its women and how it treats its women it's like they're special. It holds, I was reading about what the Quran says about the mother, how it highlights the being good to your wife, and all of these things, and all the misconceptions I had about the beat your wife verse, and all these different things. I started to realize that they're not true, and my niece is all of a sudden protected by being Muslim. So and that's sort of as far as it went for that time. But then I think I then started to look more and more into Islam, to the point where I was getting a bit obsessed with it. So I started to look into all different things, and then like I said, I'm sort of paraphrasing or starting to put it all together. Is that I had to then hold a mirror up to myself and say, well, actually, if I think Islam is something beautiful and something for protection, how would it? Is it something for me? Is it something? And the other thing it made me do is also reevaluate the society around me, I was reading books, and I was also looking at Speaker's Corner, that these debates came up, and I remember them talking about. I remember Hamza's 5 poisons came up. I don't know if you've heard of that. So yeah, Hamza's 5 poisons came up, which is he believes that there's 5 things destroying society, which is sexual immorality, alcohol, drugs, interest dealings. And so these are this made me, when I heard this, it made me sort of reflect on the society I live in, and I knew that Islam was actually prohibiting all this stuff. So I think, like I said, cutting a long story short, I started looking more and more into it, and I think one of the triggers for me is I started to see Islam as a really beautiful thing overall, and I started to actually even believe that it might be true. But something deep inside me thought that it's great for people from the Middle East. It's great for Pakistan. Great for them that they have that religion. Great for my niece. And there was kind of inside there was something that it wasn't really relatable to me, until I saw a guy called Hamza at Speaker's Corner. I don't know if you know him.
Is that Hamza from EF Dawah?
Hamza from Dawah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I saw him arguing, and like I said, I'd already gone through vast research up to this point. But when I saw a white guy dressed like me, arguing for Islam, so it was like something clicked in my head. Like, hang on a minute, this could actually be for you. You know, you start hearing that Islam actually came for all mankind, and when I saw that, something sort of clicked. So yeah, then I started to look more and more into it, and to be honest, I think I'd accepted it before I took my Shahada. But I think the issue for me was, by becoming Muslim, it was almost, for me, I saw it was kind of like a social suicide amongst my friendship groups. It was, you know, people were going to be concerned that I was going to go off to Syria. There was something really, and I was in a relationship with a non-Muslim girl. So all of these things kind of made me sort of push it down the grass. But I think, you know, the one day came where I thought, you know what, I believe in Allah, and I believe Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the last final messenger. So I was a Muslim. So I took my Shahada.
Subhanallah. How did you end up so that was a year process, was it?
Yeah, it was over a year, I'd say, yeah.
And then when did you take your Shahada? Were you like by yourself? Were you with others?
It's funny. I actually remember. I remember the moment I said I've got to do this, and it sounds really cringy, and I'm not really a cringy sort of guy. But I was driving, and it was February, and it was snowing, and I was driving down this road, and there was all these trees at the side, and it was snowing, and something just hit me. It was just something at that moment. I thought, I'm a Muslim. You know, what am I holding back? Why am I? You know, what I'm actually dealing with here is a lot bigger than the concerns in the back of my head, you know, about what people are going to think of me, all those things were sort of side issues. You know, I was a Muslim, and so, yeah, I got in touch with Hamza and did my Shahada over the phone more or less straight away that evening.
Wow. I have a question, but that I think that we've never actually approached in Freshly Grounded, but your story reminded me of it. So you mentioned that you were with a non-Muslim woman at the time, and also that your friend circle, you're worried about what your friend circle would say, and answer as much or as little of this as you are comfortable to, because I don't want to delve into anything that you're not happy to talk about, but. The reason I ask is, once or twice I've had interactions with brothers, with people, with guys who have accepted that Islam is the truth, like, bro, like without a shadow of doubt, but yet not taking their Shahada, and unfortunately some of them never having gone forward and taken their Shahada, and obviously alhamdulillah, while they're still alive, you know, we make dua that they do take their Shahada, but they kind of like, you know, went over that hill and have just kind of went past it, and solely because they were worried. They knew that their partner would leave them. And obviously I can't belittle that and say, how can you choose a person over like your way of life? But because it's a tough one, right? So it's not something to belittle. But how does a person get over that humongous challenge of that and their social circle in general, thinking perhaps I'm never gonna have these friends ever again?
Yeah, I think like you exactly quite rightly said, is that what we're talking about here, when we're talking about salvation, Islam, your afterlife, we're talking about something a lot bigger than relationships with people. But the thing is, that's easy to say, but as a new Muslim, you're fragile. You haven't yet built your foundations. So you can be toppled over the edge, and many people, like you say, avoid taking their Shahada because they don't want to leave the person they're with. They don't want to lose family members. And I think what we do in our minds is we often think the worst. We're sure that they're going to leave us. I thought my family were going to react badly, and I thought my partner was going to leave me. Neither of those happened. And I'm not saying they do happen, but I was sure it was going to happen. And I think the best thing you can kind of do is use it as an opportunity to almost give them dawah yourself, to show them that Islam has actually turned you into, you know, all of a sudden, perhaps I'm Jordan 2.0, you know, I'm someone better than I was before. And if you can show that definitely helps. But this is definitely a problem amongst new Muslims. And I urge sort of born Muslims or even just people that have, you know, are advising reverts is to sort of, because a lot of the advice you hear because I did hear this. I heard that a Muslim man can't marry a non-Muslim woman, and so as soon as you take your shahada, that has to be cut. And the thing is, if you take your shahada and you cut everything off, because there are so many other things you have to give up. Things like alcohol. Sometimes that's a big part of people's lives. Other things in people's lives that are changing. That you're planting a seed, and that may not grow overnight for some people. Now, it doesn't mean that you are condoning haram behavior, but I think there needs to be that understanding that a revert, maybe the first thing is that they take the shahada and they're comfortable doing it.
The shahada is the most important thing, right?
Yeah, we can't be delaying that. You've got to take the shahada, and then there's a process of allowing I think you should give people around you the time. You don't have to leave everybody. You don't have to do a runner. You don't have to become somebody that's completely Arab dressing and you cut all your non-Muslim friends. That's not what your shahada does. I think the most important thing is you take your shahada and then you get onto the second pillar. You do your prayers and you trust in Allah, and then you go from there.
Do you mind me asking how old you are, Jordan?
I'm 36.
Okay, so what's it like taking your shahada? Because you hear a lot of people taking their shahada, like we were discussing on the phone about Muslim Bilal and stuff like that, and you hear a lot of people taking their shahada when they're at that age where, like you said, it's like they're discovering themselves, 18, 19, 20, maybe in their early 20s. What's it like as someone who I imagine has established himself in their work career, someone who's established himself generally in their social circle, to then at the age of around 30 years old deciding to make that plunge?
Yeah, I mean, subhanAllah, I have the utmost respect with, even now, young people that take their shahada, 19, 20, 21. The time when, when I was 21, 22, I was living a different life. Islam was nowhere near my radar. I was out, I was doing things, and I can't ever imagine me asking myself the big questions. It took me to the age of 33, 34 to sort of go, hang on a minute, hold back, and I think for me, I feel, and it may not be true, but I feel like it's probably easier as you get older, because I've lived that life, and I know what it's like, and so it's not like, whereas for a young person who perhaps have the appeal of the West lifestyle and the going out, but yeah, I think you're right in terms of as you get older, you've obviously established yourself. Many people my age probably got children. They've established themselves in a career, and by converting to Islam, unfortunately nowadays it's not like converting to Buddhism. It's not like everyone thinks, well, that's cool. The people around do suddenly start to view you differently. But you know what? What you give up for Allah replaces with better, and that's certainly the case for me. I think so. But I think you mentioned earlier, I did Umrah with Martin at the with the Dawah, and I'll never forget. It was actually going there when all of a sudden it was in. Bless you. Alhamdulillah. It was in Rhoda.
Okay. Where
I just remember putting my forehead to the ground and just tears pouring out. And like this load being lifted off my shoulder. And when I came back from Umrah, all of a sudden I didn't care what people thought about me so much. But up to that point, so I'll say I was Muslim for a good year or so, walking around really worried about what people were thinking, maybe even hiding the fact that you're Muslim, maybe even kind of, but yeah, I think probably a lot of it is my foundations grew. And then you start to realize when you trust in Allah, what else, nothing can hurt me, nothing. Even if I lost my job, my car, my house, all the things that used to define me, if I could lose everything tomorrow, and so long as I've got Allah and I'm still me, everything's gonna be fine.
So how does then how do you start looking into or actively kind of giving da'wah? Why did you go from taking your shahada to thinking, all right, other people need to I want to share my message, I want to share the da'wah? Why did you do that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I don't know if I'd necessarily recommend. I started going Speaker's Corner and kind of debating people and stuff like that, and I wouldn't recommend that to a new Muslim. But I think da'wah is, they said, even if you know one verse, we should be teaching it. I think Dawah is a very important part, and I think for me, I think I kind of I care about this country, and I do believe that Islam would be a good thing for this country. I know that would scare a lot of people listening to that. You know, I'm not saying Islam's taken over and dominated. I'm just saying a lot of people would benefit by having Islam in their life. A lot of and I think that the blend of Islam on an English person as well, because to me, British values are very much about manners, character, and respect, just like the Prophet peace upon him taught. But yeah, I think I kind of see, and I don't know if it's right or not. I kind of see it important to have natives from the country wherever you're giving dawah being shown. I'm not saying they need to all be that, but I think it's important in England to have English people giving dawah, English Muslims, just like if you were, in another country, because you can relate in a different way to the people that you listen to. And I guess, but to be honest, that hasn't happened. There's been no one that's come up to me, no English people have come up to me and said, "Wow, Jordan, Islam seems really great. Can I take my Shahada?" What's actually happened is, and I wasn't expecting it, is being a revert seems to inspire born Muslims more. It seems to, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting so many born Muslims to sort of say, "Wow, I really, your story inspired me." And to be honest, in the back of my mind, I feel like people give reverts a bit too much credit, because I think even a born Muslim has to go through the same process. You have to one day ask yourself, do you believe in Allah and Muhammad, peace be upon him? I think if you're a Muslim just because your parents are Muslim, then you have to ask the same question that a revert does. And I don't know, maybe it's because, and you could tell me, maybe it's because people think I've lived a certain life and chosen Islam, whereas they have it on their doorstep. But a lot of the messages I have to me are seeing you embrace Islam has made me realize what I have, and I've started to practice a bit more.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head there. So I started practicing at 20 years old. And before then, I was obviously born Muslim, but we weren't very cultural at all. I lived in a fairly liberal household, and I think like my granddad was very strict on my mum, and so my mum kind of wanted to really tone that down on her kids, and Alhamdulillah, she's done an amazing job, and she's always like been more of a friend to us, but in doing that, I think what happened is I was able to find the beauty of the religion without because I felt comfortable to kind of explore and understand in my own pace, but I think that one of the inspiring things about seeing revert Muslims, and if I take it back to even when I wasn't practicing, is that you can be very naive. And when you see someone who's white and they're Muslim, you think, oh, that's an interesting story. What's their story? And for selfish reasons, you're interested because you want to know that story. And you're so intrigued by it. But then what also happens, and this is where I think you hit the nail on the head, is that you see someone who wasn't born Muslim and they find the beauty of Islam and then they become a Muslim, and you start thinking to yourself, if someone who didn't even know about Islam and then learned about it and now is so attached to it, it kind of puts me to shame, because I've always known about Islam and I've always believed in it. But why is it that I'm committing the same sins that should be easy for me to not commit? Why is it that I'm almost trying to be like the non-Muslims and like hide my Islam when there's someone who was a non-Muslim who's trying to be like the Muslims, and I'm not realizing that I have this great gift? So I think there's that, but I definitely do think that there's no denying that the trigger of it, unfortunately, and perhaps naively, is, oh wow, like a white man who's Muslim. And I know I mentioned Sam earlier, but again, the look that Sam has of being like head to toe in tattoos, 6'6", and then he walks into a masjid. If you ever walk into a mosque with Sam, heads completely turn. And it's beautiful, bro, because he could take it in two ways. He could either take it in a way where he could be like, why am I being singled out? Let me be a Muslim like you guys. Or he could open up and say, yeah, alhamdulillah. And that's what he does, bro. He's chosen to be open. And so when people come up to him in a mosque and he and they speak to him, how long have you been Muslim and stuff, he's like, yeah, alhamdulillah, you know, Islam is for everyone, and Allah brought me back, and he says these words that makes people actually feel a bit embarrassed, but in a nice way. Like, it makes you think, oh wow, why did I even question him? And I've had the honor of being able to travel to some Muslim countries, to the Middle East with Sam as well, and like I mentioned, the Gambia, and watching him interact with Muslims, because in the Middle East and stuff, it's a lot more rare. Here you see white Muslims. There, and then to see someone like up to tattoos and saying inshallah breaking fast with you, people are really intrigued, and to the point where they ask questions that we see as normal now. So if you go, when I travel with him, constantly in the Muslim lands, people are telling him off for his tattoos, they're looking at his tattoos, and the way he deals with it is so amazing. He so I'll give you a few examples. One time when he was in Umrah, someone was like telling him that what he was doing is wrong, like him having tattoos is wrong, and he knows that he shouldn't have tattoos, but it's that they're not used to seeing non-Muslims or people who were non-Muslim who became Muslim like that, that they have to question. And so he just shakes off. He says, Qabla Islam, before Islam, and they kind of understand. But one time I was traveling with him in Dubai, and we were in a lift, and I saw him get frustrated for the first time, because this guy was like really rudely staring at him, like looking at him nice, and he got rightly so frustrated because he's a human. And I think Sam ended up having interaction with him, and the guy said something like, I think I might be mixing two stories here, but the guy started asking Sam about tattoos and saying, are tattoos allowed? And he actually said, Sam was like, no, they're not allowed. I would never recommend anyone to get a tattoo. Don't get a tattoo. They're not allowed. And it was like some guy who had them. And again, he like almost made that person feel embarrassed, because they were saying, are tattoos allowed? Like in a condescending way, like trying to say that. And Sam was like, no, you're right. Like, how dare someone who is a Muslim get to? And it made them feel silly and make them feel like, hold on a second. People have pasts. People come into Islam from not being Muslim, and that's okay, because it's how you finish the race, not how you start it.
Yeah,
I kind of completely went off on loads of different tangents.
I think it's a people point that the tattoos point, because Martin's got tattoos, and a couple of the other brothers we went to Umrah with got tattoos, and we had people running out of the shops saying, "Brother, that's haram." And like you say, I guess you can look at it two ways. Maybe it's a Dawah opportunity, but yeah, we were kind of always had this debate: should they know better? Should they be doing anyway? I know sometimes the brothers got upset, and sometimes the brothers would explain. I think it depends how they were approached. But yeah, it's an interesting one, the tattoo topic in Islam, and yeah, it'd be interesting to meet Sam.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm actually gonna. I told Sam about you, and he was meant to be on this episode, but Alhamdulillah. What I'm gonna do though is, if you're okay with it, I'm gonna pass you guys contact details, because you're very close to each other.
I need a barber after this.
Yeah. So they've got a few shops in. I don't know if Radlett or St Albans would be closer to you, but they got one in Radlett and one in St Albans, and both kind of in that kind of area, but generally he's a really cool person to meet, man, and his business partner Josh, they got really, really cool stories. So Josh and Sam both took their Shahada around the same kind of time, and then they started this barber shop called Menspire, because they were barbers from kind of day one, became really passionate about it, and now they're like award-winning barbers. Josh is like Josh recently, like a few years in a row now, has won like the best barber educator in the world. Like, he's literally like the world's best barber, like on paper. It's amazing, man. They've got like 12 stores now around the world and stuff. So amazing. Really inspiring guy, man. Yeah, I'm gonna make sure that you guys connect. But yeah. Well, so in discussing kind of people's reactions to reverts, generally, you mentioned that your family were surprisingly okay with it. What other kind of reactions and stuff had you got?
Yeah, so I think maybe lucky in a sense that because my sister had converted, it wasn't anything new for my mum. I think she was surprised, because I think every family has the golden boy. I was the golden boy in my family, so I think my mum was kind of like, nah, it's not for you. But yeah, I think in terms of other people, I saw it as a cleansing process for friends, because if somebody doesn't want to know me because I've converted to Islam, I mean, what sort of friend was that ever in the first place? But yeah, I think in terms of perhaps I've gone to Speaker's Corner and I've been fairly public about it in that way as well. It's interesting seeing some English people's reaction, because this traitor business, this guy's a traitor. So a lot of people from the far right would call me a traitor, and I'm still trying to wonder what I'm a traitor to. But yeah, there's that side. But yeah, like I said, I think it's such a shame that Islam has this kind of baggage with it. That it's this ISIS, Syria, grooming, terrorism. It's all linked to it, and I can't really criticize these guys who have that view, because I used to have it myself, and for that reason, I try and empathize, and I'm trying to be patient and try and explain, just debunk their misconceptions they have on Islam. But you know what? I thought about it the other day. Is that aren't we lucky that Islam isn't a fashion? Because if Islam was a fashion, you'd get all sorts joining on board. And we know that really only the strong people who really believe are going to come to Islam in the current climate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Now being a few years in, you mentioned this is your third Ramadan. Have you? How have you been adapting? Because in some ways, 3 years is a fairly lengthy amount of time. In other ways, it's a very short amount of time. Has your life kind of outside of like the spiritual life, has it changed drastically? You still kind of getting your bearings? What's it like for someone 2.5 years in?
Yeah, I think good question. I feel like for instance, when I after you take your Shahada, you learn Fatiha, you start learning to pray, and you don't really know what you're saying anyway. And so you don't. For me, I didn't automatically get that connection to Allah, and I think it's my third Ramadan now, and I think I'm starting to get a better, I would say connection. It's a relationship. For me, I found it's a relationship that grows over time as well. Your relationship with Allah, and yeah, I think that one thing's for sure is that, like I said before, that once your foundations are secure, then the sky's the limit after that. Once you've built that solid foundation, then I feel like and I've got my tests just like everyone else, but I feel now, because I think the statistics for because a lot of people, there's a higher amount of people that take the Shahada and then leave Islam within the first year.
Yeah,
I think it's something like half of people take the Shahada, and then and I think there's a variety of reasons, what can topple someone over the edge, as you mentioned earlier. It could be changes in their life, could be families' reactions, it could be that a lot of people I speak to don't feel like they're worthy. They'll sin, they'll go and do something like they'll go and drink, and then suddenly think, well, actually I can't do this, and then they drop out. But yeah, I think if building your foundations is really key to that.
Do people come to you for advice? Like, do you get new Muslims who say, look, I just took my Shahada, how do I deal with this? I know you did a stream recently the other day. It was actually the one that I ended up being introduced to you guys on, and it was the one where you discussed, a lot of people talk about life after Shahada, but no, the stream, was it about, it was about life after Shahada?
Yeah, the stream was titled Life After Your Shahada, so
yeah. It was an interesting one, because you're talking about how a lot of people are interested up to the Shahada, or like kind of life before, but then like how has life been since? And I found that very, very interesting. And so do you have people approached you who have taken their Shahada and kind of sought advice?
Yeah, it's interesting what I hear a lot is when someone takes a Shahada, there's this, you get hugs from all the brothers, and a lot of people are interested, and then you reach this period where all of a sudden you're on your own. A few of our people talk about that fact. But yeah, in terms of for me, I mean, we're in a Facebook group EF Dawah set up, and so there's a few of us giving advice. So we also have the more learned brothers in there, in addition to some of us that have dealt, because some of the challenges that people may go with, it's very individual, and I may be able to help some people with some things, whereas someone else, because for instance, I always believe, like I said, I take the approach that that after your Shahada, you need to take things slow. I feel like you because a lot of reverts become overzealous overnight, and they start to dress Arab. I'm not saying anything wrong with that, but a lot of people do it for the reason where they try and, they're like a kid in a candy shop trying to get as much as they can. Whereas I feel like, you've, like I say, keep going back to those foundations. Whereas some people in the group take the view that it's better to, for instance, Hamza did like a mini hijrah. He left his family and girlfriend and started a new life. And I think at the end of the day, it's horses for courses. I'm always wary giving reverts advice, because my way may not be the right way for them. So it's kind of never giving definitive, this is what you must do. It's giving them options. And like I say, if they're praying and they're putting their trust in Allah, they will make the right decision themselves. It's not for us to impose, even on new Muslims. It's not for us to say, you must leave your girlfriend, you must leave your job because it's haram, you must leave. I don't feel that that's really the job of good advice to a new Muslim.
Yeah, and oftentimes you're taking a Shahada is such a big step, and then you're trying to ease yourself into it. And inevitably, as people gain knowledge and as people kind of get their bearings, they want to do those things themselves. But there's always, like you said, the most important thing after taking Shahada is that you start learning to pray. And then once you got your prayer and you got that as kind of like your backbone, you can start taking steps. But you're right. I think a lot of us, when we see brothers who are taking their Shahada, we want to be saying, oh, and this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and now you have to stop this. And we had a brother in at work, Nate, who took his Shahada with us about 2-3 years ago. He's going to get upset with me for not remembering the exact day, but it was a January, and I think it's about 2 years ago. And I remember that, like, the day he took his Shahada, he actually what I remember is him talking to us about taking his Shahada. And he said that he used to work at the airport before he started working with us, and there were so many Muslims, and as you probably know, there's so many Muslims working in the airport. I don't know why, but there's a lot of Muslims who work in the airport. And he said that the brothers there were so pushy that he went the opposite way. Like, he wasn't interested in Islam because they're so pushy, like, for him to learn about Islam, and they were giving such kind of blunt da'wah. And then what happened is, I remember when he started working with us, so to give you some context, where we work is my brother runs a marketing agency, and so he kind of started working as a photographer in this marketing agency. We do social media marketing, and I remember we have a very small team, and I think not on purpose, but all of us were Muslim, and he was one of the first non-Muslims to join. And I remember saying to my brother that, look, let's make sure, because we pray in the office and stuff, and so let's make sure that we never make him feel awkward. No one try and give him be too strong on him with stuff. We at work, and also with prayer, let's try and not make him feel uncomfortable, because we had a separate a room as well. Let's try and pray in there rather than just praying in here, because we don't want him to feel uncomfortable. And about 2 years later, when he took his Shahada, he said that all of those things of us not being pushy led him to look into it himself in his own time. And I think that's super important, man. That's
a fantastic comment. Like I say, someone has to lead themselves within Islam. It can't be, do this, do that, learn Fatiha, and I want it by next Monday. It just doesn't work like that. Let them, by all means, give advice, but spot on what you said. Mashallah.
So I'll round it up because I'm conscious of your time and stuff as well. But just before we do head out, what got you involved with the brothers at EF Dawah? I know you said that you started going to Hyde Park and stuff, but are you guys close? You all went to Umrah together. What's it like? Is it nice having a brotherhood of relatable brothers who are kind of all going through similar journeys together?
Yeah, do you know what? Often in my du'as, I make for new Muslims to have the same support I had. I was very blessed to meet Abbas, Imran, Hamza, Ayaz, Anis, and then a lot of other reverts like Martin as well in there. All beautiful brothers that they're there 24 hours a day. We all bounce off each other and we give each other advice. We did Umrah together, and that part of it's been been amazing for me, and I do feel for reverts that are isolated. Particularly now, maybe in this lockdown as well. You could have a new Muslim that's out there trying to do Ramadan on his own or her own. And so I think it's very important for us to reach out. And one of my motivations for wanting to do live streams is that reason, really. And may Allah reward you for the work you're doing as well. Is we have the internet now, so we can still reach out to people, and hopefully the live streams are helping those. But yeah, for me personally, the EF Dawah guys have been a real blessing for me. So and like I say, I make dua that others get that same support.
Listen, Jordan, I am truly inspired by your story, honestly, and I'm so grateful that you gave us your time today. I know that despite us being in lockdown, you could have said no. It was a random brother messaging you asking if you wanted to jump on podcast, and you agreed to it. So I really do appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
And so thank you for giving us your time for that. There was one other thing that I did want to mention. Oh yeah, of course. So if people wanted to get in touch with yourself, do you have? I struggled to find you on socials or anything.
Yeah, good point. At the moment, we direct people to the EF Dawah page. I probably do need to start up my own kind of page and stuff. I've got my own YouTube channel.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Jordan M, where people can comment. But you're right, I should probably get a bit more active on Instagram and stuff like that.
There's two sides to that coin, man. If you're not on it already, there's a lot of benefit to stay off it. To be honest, I
know. And to be honest, I've never seen it a too healthy way, this social media. But to be honest, if I want, and I am keen to get more involved in Dawah. I mean, I've only just started really with we're doing live streams on EF Dawah and stuff, and I'm not someone who is all knowledgeable, and there's a lot of knowledgeable brothers out there doing some great work. But if there's any little bits I can do, I definitely want to get involved, and yeah.
Inshallah. Okay, so for now, if anyone wants to get in touch or kind of get any advice or is going through a similar thing to you, they can get in touch via the EF Dawah Facebook page, you're saying, right?
Yeah, they come through because I'm on there and I'll see the message. But in the meantime, maybe I'll look at setting something else up as well. Yeah.
Well, we're not putting this episode out until probably the upcoming Friday. So if you do so beforehand, then just drop me a message and I'll make sure I put those links in the bio, so that people can get in touch with you. And yeah, man, like I said again, I really appreciate your time. If you stay there, Jordan, I'm just going to end the stream. It might end our call, but then if it does, I'll call you straight back.
Assalamu alaikum.
No worries. Take care. Assalamu alaikum. And thank you everyone for watching. Assalamu alaikum.